you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Yogi build, the Stamina Warden for the Greymoor Chapter. This has been used quite a lot in the past. Initially came in Summerset when the bow became 2 pieces of gear instead of 1, but it's still performing very, very well. Now, there are some alterations to the build because of some weapon changes over the last patch, but don't worry, we're going to get to that in the gear. First of all, we're going to go into the stats. Now, let's pop a potion, make sure all our stuff is running. We are on 9.7k max magicka, 19.9k max health, 33k max stamina with 894 stam recovery. We are on 3k weapon damage with 66.6% crit chance. That will actually go up in content, especially if you have a Nightblade beside you, to 78.6 or close to. If you don't have a Nightblade, that will be a little bit less, but you'll be over 70% the whole time. We are on 11k resistances across the board, and we are putting 64 points into max stamina. Now, of course, this is based on the food we're using. We are using flat max health, max stamina food. If you feel like your recovery is a little low, if your group doesn't bring you enough of that and you can't sustain properly, you can of course change your food to Dubious Command Throne or Arteum Takeaway Broth. That can get a little expensive and it will bring your flat stats down, but it will help with your recovery. Failing that, you can of course just heavy attack inside your rotation. We do have extra recovery of course in our build, but we'll get to that when we get to the skills in a moment. Using the Shadow Munderstone as well, and we are not a vampire. Now, I'm going to go into the skills. I'm going to explain these in detail, which morphs to take, where the skills come from, all that good stuff. If you do skip this part, by the way, it is your own risk, of course, because if you do ask questions that have already been answered in the comment section below, I won't be responding to those, because it's a waste of time. The information is here. So, again, it's at your own risk, but it's entirely up to you. So, first of all, we're using the Bull Netch. This is from the Animal Companion skill line. It's a 4th ability unlock. Starts off as Betty Netch, morph it to Bull Netch. This will give you stamina over time. So basically you just activate it. It's free. It lasts 25 seconds. You'll get 4.9k stamina back over that period of time, and you'll be granted Major Brutality and Major Sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20%. And every 5 seconds, this Netch will remove a negative effect from you. So although we're at range, we're a bow build, we're not in the cluster of everybody else, although sometimes you might want to be, we are actually capable of sustaining and surviving via removing negative effects without really doing anything. It's built in. You don't have to run in and pick up a cleanse. You don't have to scream for someone to cleanse you. You can just do it passively. This is actually very, very helpful. Now, the recovery is absolutely insane. Don't let this run out if you can help it. The brutality is helpful, but we do have that in our potions anyway, if you choose to use those. But make sure you keep this up for the recovery. Again, like I said, it doesn't cost a thing. Really, really helpful indeed. Now, next up is Poison Injection. This wasn't on our front bar before, but when we get to the gear, this is going to make a lot more sense. If you are already familiar with certain skills in the game, that might have been a spoiler, but don't spoil it in the chat if you're watching a premiere. It's coming up, don't worry. Bow skill line, last ability to unlock, starts off as Poison Arrow, morph it to Poison Injection. This must be on the target at all times. It's a poison damage over time effect, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger the lower the target's health. So it does have an initial hit, then it has a damage over time, and then the lower the health, the more aggressive it gets, up to 100% more damage. It will start escalating under 50% of the health of the target affected, but apart from that, the rest of the time, this is a very strong dot you do want to keep up. This is very important to our overall gear setup. Don't let it run out. Next up is Silver Shards. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. First ability to unlock, starts off as Silver Bolts, morph it to Silver Shards. This is not actively used in our rotation on a single target fight. This is just here for Fighters Guild passives, which we'll get to later. However, if you are in an AoE situation, instead of spamming our main spammable, you will spam this, and you will do a lot of damage in the area of effect. And it fires additional bolts to nearby enemies as well, near the initial target for 22% less damage of the initial hit. So it'll hit the main one for more damage, and then it'll ping pong around the room and hit all the rest of them. It's very, very strong. If your tank can cluster up adds really well, this will hit multiple targets and do a stupid amount of damage. Next up is Bird of Prey. It's an Animal Companion skill line. 5th ability to unlock. Starts off as Falcon Swiftness, morph it to Bird of Prey. Very simply put, this gives us minor berserk the whole time. Yes, you can get that from combat prayer, but if you have this on you, on your front bar, and your back bar, we are double barring it, you will never lose that minor buff. So you have 8% increased damage done all the time. And if you do activate it, you got speed boost. We are agile, we are out at range, and you will benefit from that. And just to add to it, we have this little extra agility bonus here where we can activate a magical costing ability so it doesn't affect our sustain, and we can run really, really fast. We are quite quick. Next up is Lethal Arrow. This is your main spammable. It's from the bow skill line. First ability you unlock starts off as Snipe, morph it to Lethal Arrow. This is incredibly powerful. It has a 1 second cast time, or a wind up or channel, and it will hit the target for poison damage, direct poison damage in fact, and it guarantees a poison status effect. Poison status effect usually has a chance to apply from poison, and if it does, it will give you a poison damage over time on the target. This is guaranteed with this skill, so you'll have it all the time. Also, it afflicts the target with minor defile, reducing their healing received and health recovery by 15% for 4 seconds. That's not massively important, but if you are up against a boss that does heal, this will debuff it as such. This is your most important skill as far as your overall damage is concerned. You must use this as your main spammable, unless it's AoE, in which case it's Silver Shards. We are, of course, using the bear. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called Yogi now, would it? Animal Companion skill line needs to be level 12 in this skill line to unlock it. Starts off as Feral Guardian, morph it to Wild Guardian. This is for the physical version of it. The other version is a magical version. This will do damage all the time, punching the enemy, which is great, slapping it with his paws, and it costs 75 ultimate to activate its special ability. So you don't have to use ultimate to have the bear present. You just have to double bar it, otherwise he'll die. He will do damage to the target that you're hitting, or the last one you heavy attacked, if there's multiple targets. And if you do activate the ultimate, he'll kind of rear up and smack the target really, really hard in the face. But this has got an execute bonus to it. So the lower the target's health, the more damage it will do. So under 25% health, if you can time it really well, especially during off balance, you can get a massive hit out of this. Sometimes semi-trial buffed, so we'll say target dummy, in excess of 160, 170k hits. It's very, very strong. So make sure you use this ultimate as much as you possibly can. Keep an eye on your timers, because 75 ultimate is stupidly cheap. You can use it almost every second or third rotation. It's nuts. Now, back bar. Nature's Embrace. This is from the Green Balance skill line. 5th ability to unlock. Starts off as Nature's Grasp. Morph it to Nature's Embrace. Now, this will basically swing you to the target, a friendly target, and it will heal you and them for 15k plus over 10 seconds. It's a heal over time. That can obviously be much more depending on your crits and your stats at the time. Now, you gain 3 ultimate when each of these effects is complete if you're in combat. So if you go and heal somebody else right now, you both get the heal over time, and you get 3 ultimate for each completed heal. So you'll end up getting 6. Now, this is scaled off of your highest offensive stat as well, which means this will actually scale off of our max stamina and weapon damage, because that's our highest offensive stat, which is quite handy. It's not a magicka heal, it just costs magic to cast it. Now, this has also got a very cool effect to it, because for us, when are we really going to use this? In an emergency when someone needs a heal, or when we need a heal? We can use it for us if we really want to, because we have a friendly with us all the time, and he is at range. We can actually activate this on our bear. So if we need a heal and we are in a group, we can use another player, or we can use the bear. If we're solo, we can use the bear as much as we want, because he'll be hitting the target, we can stay ranged, and if we need to, we can pull ourselves to him. Now, this isn't the only heal you can choose. There's a couple of other options if you prefer. Now, if you want to help the group, if you're close by or they're close by, maybe you've got some ranged DPS with you as well, you can put down Circle of Protection from the Fighters Guild skill line and morph it to Ring of Preservation, and this will put a Ring of Protection on the ground, which will give everyone minor protection, reducing the damage they take by 8% over the period of time, which is 8 seconds. Also, you'll give them minor endurance, which will increase yours and their stam recovery by 10%, which is quite helpful, and this will heal rapidly. This will give you a 0.5 second ticking heal, so you actually get 16 ticks out of this over time. So this is also an option, but this is more static. And if you really want to help your group, especially if you're moving around a lot, you can, of course, go into Assault, and you can use Echoing Vigor. Echoing Vigor starts off as Vigor, morph it to Echoing Vigor. This will give you a surrounding area of effect heal every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Whatever you choose is entirely up to you. If you want a more selfish one for maybe just one person or for you and your bear, you can choose this. If you want one to help your group and you're moving around a lot, you can use Echo and Vigor. Or if you want one that's more static, you can use Circle of Protection. The choice is yours. I personally prefer Circle of Protection most of the time because of the Fighters Guild passives, but depends on the situation. Next up is Consuming Trap. This is in our Soul Magic skill line. Very easy to get. You unlock this at the beginning of the game. You don't even need a skill point for the first version of it. Starts off as Soul Trap, morph it to Consuming Trap. You will need a skill point to morph it. This will do magic damage or physical damage, depending on which one of your stats is highest. our offensive stats are based on physical, so stamina and weapon damage, so this will do physical damage over time to single target, and you can put it on multiple targets if you have to. This has a massive bonus as well. If the target affected dies, you will gain back, obviously, a soul gem, first of all, which is great, and you will also heal and get resources back. Basically, 20% of all 3 of your resource pools will be filled. So if you put this on 1 target and the target dies, you get 20% health, stamina, and magicka. If you put this on 4 targets and they all die, you just got 80% back. This is absolutely insane. Understand this skill and use it to your advantage, as well as just putting it inside your rotation. Next up is Subterranean Assault. This is an animal companion skill line. Second ability you unlock starts off as Scorch, morph it to Subterranean Assault. This is really simple. You activate it, it puts Shulks under the ground, they tunnel towards the enemy, and then they pop. But it has a 3-second duration, not cast time. It casts instantly, and then 3 seconds after it will explode. When it does, in area of effect, the targets that are affected by the actual initial hit will all have major fracture on them, reducing their physical resistance by 5280 for 6 seconds. That used to be a lot less, so that's quite helpful. Now, if you've got a tank, obviously, if they're using Pierce Armor or any more for that, they will, of course, have this debuff already on the target, but it's a helpful filler in case it falls off. But at the same time, this is a nice bursty hit in area of effect that is quite helpful towards our rotation. Basically, what you need to do with this, instead of pressing it and just waiting for it to fire, we use it on the back bar, and we end up getting the damage on the front bar because of the way the rotation's set up. We actually use this as a swap skill, and by the time the 3 seconds kicks in, we're on the stronger bar for us, and it goes off. It's really helpful. So you don't have to spam this. We just use it as a filler while we're on the back bar. Of course, with double barred Bird of Prey, because you want Minor Berserk on both bars, why not? And of course, we're using Arrow Barrage. Now this is in the bow skill line. It's the second ability to unlock. Starts off as Volley, morph it to Arrow Barrage. This puts an area of effect damage over time on the ground. It will do damage for 8 seconds, although the ability lasts for 10. The reason that is because it has a 2-second delay when you first wind it up. This is very strong. You don't want this to run out ever. But our rotation will allow this to have almost 100% uptime for the actual skill itself, alongside Poison Injection on the front bar as well. As long as you keep a clean rotation, neither of these will actually run out for much more than a second. If it's anything longer than that, you just need to clean up your rotation, get some practice in. You might want to morph this to from Arrow Barrage to Endless Hail for the time being, just while you're practicing. Depends on how experienced you are with the build. We have, of course, double barred Wild Guardian, because like I said at the beginning, if you want to use the bear, you need to double bar it. This is actually going to be quite quick, because most of our skills are either passives or just from the same skill line. There's not much an explanation for the skills, so we're just going to go straight into passive now. This will give you a heal anytime one of your animal companion skills ends. So we have a skill here, which will have a duration. If you cast that and it ends, you'll heal. And Bullnetch, if you cast this and it runs out, it will heal you. However, if you recast this, it counts as it finished, because a new one's starting. So you can actually spam this and get a free heal. It's small, but it helps. When you cast an animal companion's ability while you are in combat, you will generate 4 ultimate. This can happen once every 8 seconds. As long as you're doing your rotation properly, this shouldn't be an issue. Once every 10 seconds at least, we're going to be using this, so you're guaranteed the 4 ultimate. It's going to happen. This increases your magicka and stam recovery by 12% if an animal companion ability is slotted. We have 1, 2, 3 on the front bar, 1, 2, 3 on the back bar. We're going to get that bonus no matter what. Handy. And this increases your damage done by 2% for each animal companion ability slotted. We have 3 on each bar. We get 6% flat damage output bonus on both bars. Yes, we could put Cutting Dive here, for example, for an extra 2% healing damage done, but we are not on purpose because we want to use that for other things. Green balance is important, although we're not going to use all of them. When you heal yourself or an ally while under 40% health with a green balance ability, you gain major mending, increasing your healing done by 25% for 3 seconds. So if you are using Nature's Embrace and you do heal at very, very low health, then of course that will give you that benefit and you'll get a much bigger heal out of it. If you're not using a green balance ability, then of course you won't get that passive. So this is hit and miss. If you use that skill, get this. If you don't use that skill ever, you can dump the points. When you heal an ally with a green balance ability, same applies, that particular skill, you gain 250 magicka or stamina, whichever resource pool is lower, and this can occur once a second. So that is actually quite helpful if you're using this skill. If you're not, again, dump the points. This increases your healing done with green balance abilities by 2% for each one slotted. That only applies on the back bar. If you don't have that skill on there, you don't need it. This one you will need no matter what. If you activate a heal on yourself or somebody else, you or them or both will get minor toughness, increasing their max health by 10% for 20 seconds. If you pop a vigor, every single person that got hit by that has got 10% increased health, including yourself. If you put minor protection, circular protection in fact, on the ground and people get healed from that, same applies. If you cast your bull netch and you recast it so it's actually gone and then back again, you'll get a heal. That'll give you minor toughness. If you use your nature's embrace, that will work for you and the ally. Any heal whatsoever will give you minor toughness. So that's very important. That's a buff to your group and yourself, if you can manage it. We're not using any Winter's Embrace abilities at all. Now, if you are in a situation where you feel like you're a little bit squishy, you don't have another Warden in your group giving out a resistance buff, you can, of course, use Expansive Frost Cloak on the back bar if you don't want the heal, and this will give you a resistance buff occasionally. Just make sure you keep it up. However, that's not necessarily part of the build, so you probably won't be using it that often, so you can ignore this. If you do have that skill on, you may want a couple of passives. This increases your chance of applying chilled status effects with Winter's Embrace abilities. We're not using any of that effector, so you don't need this. However, enemies and allies who have recently been chilled take 10% more critical damage and healing from you. So if anyone has been chilled recently and you heal them, or if you've been chilled recently and you heal yourself, you will actually increase your crit healing from that negative effect being there. So this passive you will actually need. It's kind of a plus for damage on one side, but then also a plus for heal if you take a negative. It's a two-sided skill. This is only relevant if you have this skill slotted, which most people will not, so it's not 100% important, but if you do, you will gain physical and spell resistance on that bar for each skill slotted. We'll only have one if possible. This reduces effectiveness of snares applied to you by 15%. Get that. We're very, very fast. We don't want to be snared. Make sure you get this passive. And this increases your magic and frost damage by 10%. We're not using frost damage. We're not using magic damage. You can pretty much nuke this and get rid of it. So really, the only ones you really want is this one and this one. But if you do use Expansive Frost Cloak for any reason whatsoever, then you'll want the frozen armor as well. Now, this is quite simple. Bow is very important, especially since we have two of them. You must understand these passives. Most people using bow do not even apply one of the most basic passives in this. This one gives you a damage bonus of up to 12% against enemies at longer range. You're using a long-ranged weapon, and this benefits you the further away you are for your bow skills. So if you're in the face of the enemy, you're missing out on 12% increase to poison injection, light attacks, heavy attacks, lethal arrow, and arrow barrage. You are lessening your damage by being in the face of the enemy. Sometimes you might have to be, but wherever you can, stay ranged. Just do not go outside of 20 meters range if you can gaze it, otherwise the subterranean assault won't reach. Everything else will, but that won't. Stay ranged. Increases your weapon crit rating for having a bow equipped. Nice, we've got that on both bars. Reduces the stamina cost of bow abilities. Great, we need that. And Hawkeye is very important. When you deal damage with a light attack or a heavy attack, you will get a 5-second bonus of 5% extra damage with bow abilities. Every single consecutive light attack that you add on top of that will add another 5%. And it'll stack 5 times. So if every 5 seconds, before the 5 seconds is up, you apply another light attack or heavy attack, you will stack and stack and stack this bonus 5 times to give you a 25% damage increase alongside your range increased damage here for your bow abilities. If you stop light attacking or heavy attacking, you will lose the whole stack. So you must keep up your light attacks no matter what bar you're on. And because we're using 2 bows, this should not be a problem. This is our bread and butter passive. You must keep up your light attacks if you want to keep up your consistent damage for your overall build, because both bars require it. If you dodge roll, for 4 seconds, you will have Major Expedition, which increases your speed, obviously. It does cost you stamina to dodge roll, and the closer you dodge roll to a previous one, within 4 seconds, you will have an increased cost to your next dodge roll, and so on and so forth. However, we do have Major Expedition here, and it costs Magicka, so if you don't want to waste your stamina dodge roll and to get this benefit, you can just cast your wings and run. So if you don't have it just yet, it's not the end of the world, but make sure you do get it eventually, because it will help a little bit. We are, of course, using nothing but medium armor. So, 7 medium. This will increase your weapon crit for each piece worn, so 7 times that. 328 will give you 2300. This increases your stamina recovery per piece worn and reduces the cost, so that's massive as well. This improves your sneaking and reduces your detection radius. It's not that important for PvE, but some situations you might want to benefit from it, especially if you're in March of Sacrifices and you're fighting Tarsi. That can be a pain. This increases your weapon damage by 15% for having 5 pieces. We do actually have 7, so we get this all the time. Just make sure your armor's not broken, otherwise you'll lose it. And this will increase your movement speed bonus of sprinting by 3% per piece worn. We have a 21% speed bonus or sprint bonus, and we have major expedition here. We are really, really fast. Stay out in the field, stay at range, get your extra damage bonuses, survive, sustain, and be quick. It's really helpful. We are going to need Fighter's Guild. This is actually very important. We don't have Beast Trap on purpose. That's covered in our gear, but we'll come into that in a moment. Now, Intimidating Presence you will need because you want to reduce the cost of your Fighter's Guild abilities. If we're in an AoE situation, we will be using Silver Shards. And if we are using Ring of Preservation, that can get quite expensive, so you want to get the cost down. Now, this will increase your weapon damage by 3% for each Fighter's Guild ability slotted. So, we do actually have a nice weapon damage bonus here. These Animal Companion abilities do give us damage done. So that's a flat, all the damage you do is increased. And this one gives you a flat weapon damage bonus for being there. As with Circle of Protection if you put it here. So we can actually have exactly the same bonuses on both bars for both weapons all the time. If you set it up that way. But this passive is actually very helpful. Putting all the Fighters Guild's abilities on the front bar didn't outperform versus damage done. But a balance of them was actually quite nice. If you do want more damage done, you can of course replace this with the Cliff Racer just to put it on the bar. But the damage difference is very, very minimal. You won't even notice it, to be fair, in single target fights. And this is quite a handy skill to have just in case you have ads in the room. This is very helpful. If you kill Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf, you will generate 9 ultimate. So if you get the kills, you get extra ultimate. And with an ultimate that only costs 75 to activate, this is absolutely broken. In AoE fights where ads are dying very, very quickly, if you're getting all the kills, which you can do occasionally, you're going to be able to spam your bear, basically. It's nuts. This is actually quite important. Your Fighter's Guild abilities will deal additional damage, 20% in fact, to Undead, Daedra, or Werewolves. If it's an AoE situation and we are spamming Silver Shards, you will get more damage out of it. It's very nice indeed. Undaunted, of course, if you take any synergy, you will get 4% of all resources back. Take every single synergy you can see. They all benefit you, no matter what they are, and they will give you this. Also, because of your range, you will actually be able to take the Spiders synergy from Shadow Silk, and you'll also be able to take a synergy from Inner Fire because you need to be 15 meters away from the caster or from the target that it's affecting to take it. We need to be within 15 to 20 meters away anyway to take advantage of our 12% increase to damage for our bow. So our distance actually gives us access to those two synergies, whereas other people have to move around too much to pick them up. So make sure you pick them up. This increases your max health, stamina, and magicka for each type of armor worn. We're wearing one type of armor, we're just wearing medium. So we've got a 2% bonus to everything. We are, of course, an orc. Last update, we were a red guard because we were using a lot of stamina abilities and we needed to get the cost down. So we used the red guard passive, which reduced the cost of weapon skills. So our bow skills were really cheap. Now we don't need to. Because of the way the build is set up this time, I have removed a stamina skill that was being used twice every rotation and replaced it with a magicka ability. So our sustain is up. And in return, we get 2k max stamina, 1k max health. We also heal once every 4 seconds from weapon ability damage, which is our bow basically. So this, or this, including damage over time, all contributes. And we have an increased weapon damage of 258. And reduced cost of sprinting by 12% and increased movement speed. So we have major expedition. We have a 10% increase to movement speed. We also have all our medium armor passes, which makes us even faster. We can run really, really quickly. We've got a nice flat damage increase. We've got a nice flat health increase. We can heal from our damage. It all stacks up very, very nicely. You can, of course, still use Red Guard if you prefer. However, just bear in mind, you will have less health. You won't have the movement speed increase. And you have a less damage output overall. Your sustain will be roughly around the same sort of area as it was before with the Orc or with the Red Guard regardless. You can sustain this indefinitely in combat as long as your group is all prepared for it. This worked out really well. Again, you can change it or keep it. It's up to you. Medicinal use is the most important passive in the game, in my opinion. If you're using crafted pots, which you should be, I'm using weapon, crit, and endurance pots, but you can change that. You can, of course, if you keep your Betty up, you can use a crit, a heal, and endurance pot. It's entirely up to you. But whatever you're using, get this passive. Instead of your potions lasting 36 seconds, they last 47. The cooldown is 45. Do not let your potions run out. People that activate potions when they're really, really low only because they're trying to save money are doing it wrong. You need to keep these up all the time. They are consumable buffs and you are in full control of them. Make sure they always are running. Very important. Now, this is actually a lot quicker than most build videos because, again, we're only using the same weapon on both bars, so we only have to go through one weapon skill line. It's quite handy. So, gear. What are we using? If you're using the previous setup, yes, you can still perform very, very well, but the Asylum weapon did get changed, so you will add a debuff to the target, meaning that everyone who's hitting with bows have more penetration, basically, 6600, which is insane. However, for this particular build, the update has been changed and is much more sustainable and has a higher damage output. Master's Perfected Bow. You do not need to go into VDSA to get this. You can go into normal and get the normal version. You know, the one that everyone already has, which is amazing and comes from Vet. Well, that now drops in normal. So that relieves some pressure. This needs to go on the front bar in Precise. We're using poisons as well, double dot poisons. And this will give you a weapon damage bonus for being on the front bar, which is great. We didn't have that before. If you have a perfected one, you have a normal one, there's no weapon damage bonus. And this will increase your weapon damage versus the target that is affected by poison injection by 330. 330 extra weapon damage against that target. So do not let your poison arrow or your poison injection or whatever ever run out. Always keep it on your target. This is essential. Again, for those that are worried, you do not have to go into Vet to get the perfected one if you don't want to. You can go on normal and just pick up a normal bow. The only thing you'll be missing is the weapon damage bonus. The actual skill itself, the 2-item piece bonus for it being a bow, it's two-handed, it's 2 pieces. You will still get that. It's exactly the same. Normal, farm that. If you can do Vet, great, go into Vet instead. The back bar weapon is a Maelstrom weapon. And I know this is perfected as well, yes, but it doesn't have to be. If it's perfected, you have a crit bonus. If it's not perfected, you won't. Veteran, you get perfected. Normal Maelstrom, you get the same bow that everyone's been using for the last 4 or 5 years. It's absolutely fine. You want infused, the weapon and spell damage glyph on it. This is very, very strong and did get buffed a substantial amount. Our arrow barrage is affected by this skill. So anything that is volley, arrow barrage, or endless hail. Each tick will be 430 damage extra. And the bonus is increased by 143 every time volley ticks, up to 8 times. So the full duration of arrow barrage, basically. Have this, that entire skill is boosted to hell and back. Have this, keep poison injection up. That target will take more damage from all damage, including this. So, Masters on the front, Maelstrom on the back. We're using Zovkin in 5 pieces, so any order you like. And you want to make sure they're all divines. This will give you a crit bonus, another crit bonus, a penetration bonus. And when you deal damage, critical damage in fact, you will gain a stack of precision, increasing your weapon critical by 129 for 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 10 times. So, when it gets to max stacks, by the way, you will gain minor force, increasing all of your critical damage by 10%. So you have to get the stacks up first, and once they are up, if they stay up, you will keep this indefinitely. That's why we don't need a beast trap. It just takes a little while to wind it up. Every crit will help push this to 10. Then, all you have to do is make sure you crit once within 10 seconds of the last one, and this will stay with you forever. So keep your damage going. Yes, you're at range. Yes, you're agile as hell. But be very aware that a good DPS will keep damaging inside mechanics. Don't just run away because mechanics are happening and come back afterwards and do some damage. Tanks still taunt and keep up buffs and bonuses while the mechanics are happening. Healers will still heal while the mechanics are happening. You still keep hitting stuff. Now, the Hawkeye passive I went over earlier required you to keep up a light attack at least once every 5 seconds. So does the next set. So that's why it's deliberately on versus any other options. You can use other gear if you prefer, but if you can get hold of Reliquin, it's going to stack perfectly alongside your Hawkeye passive, and if you don't fail your Hawkeye, you'll never fail this, and you'll keep your stacks up 100% of the time. It will take practice, but since you're already at range, it's much, much easier for you to keep up your light attacks inside mechanics. This, again, has 2 crit bonuses, so our crit is massive. This will give you minus Slayer at all times, increasing all damage done to Trial, Dungeon, and Arena monsters, and it will give you a max stamina bonus if you have the perfected version. You don't have to have perfected. You can, of course, get the normal one from normal Cloud Rest. Now, as I said before about the light attacks, if you can keep a light attack up once every 5 seconds, you will obviously keep this running. But what you need to do is hit once every 1 second if you can to get the stacks up, of course. And if you do consistently keep the stacks up, you'll have 20 stacking wind ticks, which will do a massive amount of damage in single target. If you do lose your stacks, you have to start all over again. So once a second, 1 stack can apply up to 20, and then as long as you keep consistently light attacking inside your rotation, you will never lose it. If you can't actively keep this up, you've got 2 options. Either practice and get good at it, or take it off. The reason the second option is to take it off is because if you can't actively apply this 5-piece bonus, there's no point you having it on. It's a waste of time. So for that, other options are entirely up to you, but I would personally go with mechanical acuity or something like that, because that will actually help you out. It was on a previous build before, but that just means that you've got guaranteed crit in and out of mechanics, or you can use something else that you favor. It's entirely up to you, but I would not recommend using this if you cannot keep up those stacks. I would try and push you to practice it though. Jewelry is 3 bloodthirsty, so if you can, just go on normal. Frostfall on normal for this. Cloud Rest on normal for this. Maelstrom, normal. VDSA, normal. You can get the basic build in normal difficulty and perform extremely well. But if you do have access to the vet or perfected stuff, then of course you're going to have a slight increase to your overall. Choices are yours, but I would stick to this as closely as you possibly can. You've got minor force all the time, you've got an abundance of crit, you've got a stupid stack and bonus from this that just goes alongside your bow passives. Everything is done for you, basically, as long as you can keep up your rotation. Now, champion points. Same as pretty much everything else I've got. 72 points into Ironclad to reduce the amount of direct damage you take. 64 and 64 into these two to make sure you've got a reduction to all damage types by 13%, and 19% reduction to damage over time with 51 points into Thick Skin. Unchained is very important. If you do get stunned and you break free, your next stamina ability within the next 5 seconds will be 80% cheaper. So we're using a lot of stamina abilities, use something that's expensive. 90 points in a quick recovery to give us 5% increase to healing received, and for doing so, of course, if you res someone, you will take 15% less damage. You need 10 points in this tree for this passive, by the way. We are very fast. It's likely that you're going to be able to get to a body quite quickly to be able to pick them up. Make sure you get enough points in here to unlock that. 44 into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 in Tenacity so that if you do heavy attack, you get 14% more back. 75 in Mooncalf to increase our recovery. Bear in mind, of course, the Bull Netch alongside that doesn't show in our stats, but we have really high recovery anyway. 72 points into Tumbling. We have a massive reduction to cost for dodge roll. We're very, very agile. This will actually heighten that. And we've got 4 points in here. It's only 1% actually towards block cost reduction because we don't hit the full 2%. But at least we can spend the 4 points in here rather than doing nothing. And in the meantime, we unlock the Treasure Hunter passive. So we have higher quality loot from chests. Nothing in here. 66 into Master at Arms to increase all of our direct damage, which we're doing a lot of. 9 points in here to increase our physical damage from our lights and heavy attacks, which also stack alongside this as well. They balance off each other. And we've got the Butcher passive, meaning our light and heavy attacks at low health will actually do more damage as well. 56 into Thaumaturge to increase our damage over time, which we do have a lot of. Remember, our Poison Injections damage over time. Our Soul Trap is, our Arrow Barrages, which is obviously boosted by our Maelstrom weapon. We do have a lot of damage over time as well, so this helps. 61 points here into crit damage, so we actually have stronger heals and stronger crit damage when we do actually hit stuff. So that's very, very helpful, especially since we crit a lot. 56 into Mighty to increase all of our damage that we do, or physical, poison, and disease by 12%, and only 22 into Piercing. The reason for this is we have allowed for Tremor Scale. Tremor Scale was altered recently. It'll give you just short of 2.4k penetration to all physical damage dealers in your group. So I have allowed for that. However, changing this, if it's not in the room, didn't actually benefit us that much at all. It actually worked out that we could still hit very, very healthy numbers with the missing penetration, and then the added penetration just made it even better. With the test we did on the dummy, we actually introduced Tremor Scale occasionally to see how much of a difference it would make, and it did make about 2 or 3k, but if you want to do a flat dummy test on your own, the numbers are about the same. So the gap here made a lot of sense, and it did actually help inside a trial situation, but you can't flat demonstrate that on the dummy without somebody bringing it for you because the dummy doesn't have the Tremor Scale buff on it. 22 points in here, absolutely perfect. 75 points obviously into this tree, which we already have, does give us the Exploiter passive. All stamina DPS to generally be able to get hold of this, and if anything does go off balance, remember, that's when your big stuff hits. So if your bear is almost ready, but off balance is going to come in about 2 or 3 seconds, time it. Use your bear if you can. When something goes off balance, you get a much, much bigger boost out of it, especially during execute. Same goes for your snipes as well. Keep an eye on that off balance, utilize it as much as you can, and if your sustain is low, that's when you want a heavy attack. Now we're going to go into the rotation. And the rotation is actually quite simple, but we're going to need the dummy for it so we can actually hit stuff, because otherwise you won't see the abilities going off. Now remember earlier I said we are not a vampire? We are not a vampire on purpose. Yes, of course you can get the sneak passive if you have stage 1, but just bear in mind your sustain will go down a little bit. So if you choose to, you can of course do that. But the abilities themselves, I didn't want to use them actively because there wasn't enough healing coming in. I wasn't going to take advantage of Sated Fury. The way it landed when the PTS server finished and the server actually went live, it was just such a nuke to that skill. It didn't feel like it was useful for this build. Prior to that PTS update and the actual Greymoor release, it was great. Then they altered it and it's just too much of a health nuke. Not going to use it. Again, however, if you want a stage 1 vampire for the sprint passive, so you're actually faster when you sprint and all that good stuff, you can of course do so. Now when you first start the fight, you want to make sure your bull netch is running. You want endless hail down. We'll put it on the dummy. Light attack, soul trap, light attack, shouts, swap bar. You want to get your poison injection on straight away, so put that on. From there, we'll imagine that we're just going to continue the rotation as normal. So, once you're on the front bar and your poison injection is on the first time, you've now got that buff. So, you snipe 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Light attack, poison injection, swap. Volley, light, soul trap, light, shout, swap. Light snipe 4 times. 2, 3, 4. Light poison injection, swap. Light volley. Light soul trap. Light shout, swap. Light snipe 4 times. And that's it. Light poison injection, swap. You'll notice that it never has a downtime. Now, of course, that's not against the other dummies. Sustain is different. You're not in a fight, whatever. Here's the changes to it. If your bull netch has run out, sneak in a light attack bull netch before you finish your front bar rotation. You only need to do it once every 25 seconds at most. Sometimes you won't need to, depending on your group, but make sure you can keep that up if you can. And if your bear is ready, instead of 4 snipes, replace 1 snipe with a bear. So, for argument's sake, if we were in the middle of a rotation right now and the bear was ready, don't use it on the back bar. Use it there, and then you do 3 snipes instead. 2, 3, light attack, poison injection, swap. Volley, light soul trap, light shouts, swap. 1, 2, 3, 4, poison injection, swap. Keep it up all the time. So if you want to know damage output, check these out. This is what you're looking at. A good average, a very good average, was 80k. Yes, you can hit in excess of about 83, 84 if you've got tremor scale running. Without tremor scale, it's a good average for about 80 on the dummy. If you get 75, 76, then you're on the right path, but you want to practice a little bit more with your lights and heavies. Don't miss them out. Keep an eye on off balance. Remember, the bear replaces 1 snipe. Do not let poison injection run out. Do not let arrow barrage run out. If you can keep that up, you'll be just fine. The one thing to remember, of course, is you are at range, so you are very, very agile. You can use this and run like hell, or you can dodge roll and run like hell. The choice is yours, but you can stay out of trouble very, very easily. Just don't run around the room with a boss. If a tank hasn't got a taunt on it, running away is not going to help you. You just have to make sure you don't get hit. Now, hopefully that helped. First of all, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing already on YouTube, please do hit that button. It is free. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, of course, so you know when next videos are coming. Also, if you'd like to support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and the website XynodeGaming.com, where all the written guides are as well, including this one. And there's a new Rocks extension that you can use outside of live streams as well, where you can get Rocks collectibles as kind of memorabilia for the channel when funny things happened, and you can eventually be able to trade them with your friends as well. Kind of like Magic the Gathering cards, but make your friends jealous and get some shinies. There's always free ones there as well, so make sure you pick a couple up. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.